Hello YouTube, welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Kevin and this is Red Pilled American. I hope you all had a great Easter weekend, a good Holy Week. I decided to take a little time away from YouTube myself, so I am now back and decided to update you with this new poll that came out over last week. So I've talked about before in previous videos that we are facing a national realignment in regards to political demographics, and this poll I'm about to read shows that this doesn't seem, it may not just be an anomaly. It may actually be a real realignment. And if anybody thought that this was what I'm about to read with you was possible just 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you. So, Yale Youth Poll. Okay, polls aren't everything, but this is Yale University, and left wingers generally take Ivy League polling pretty seriously. They call them the gold standard, and well, Yale is about as gold standard as they get it according to their standards. So, Yale Youth Poll just confirms what it's been showing, that there's a split with young voters between the older side and the younger side. And 18 young voters ages 18 and 21, those are currently the Gen Z voters. I think all millennials have hit. All millennials, I think, are now either in their 30s or 40s. So, which I'm 30, I'm a millennial, so I think I'm just barely in the millennial category. But I think anyone born 97 to, I think, 2011 or 12 is considered considered a Gen Z. So it shows that there is a split, and that younger Gen Z voters that are in college, the ones who are currently in college, 18 to 21, lean GOP, and 22 to 29 favor Democrats, but only by 6 points. The 18 to 21-year-olds, they favor Republicans by double digits. They're actually to the right of the way to where liberals lean, and this is incredible stuff, guys. This is stuff that we were told would never ever happen. We were told that this is insane. So it shows that young Gen Z men are supposedly, according to the Yale poll, youth poll, Gen Z men that are 18 to 21 lean Republican by a total of 19 percentage points, so R plus 9. And women that are ages of 18 to 21 are R plus 4. Yeah, that one's surprising. You almost wonder, that an outlier or not, because women are on. Usually, young women are one of the groups trending left, according to previous. But that's kind of interesting. So, but this is the younger side. So the younger, according to this, the really young Gen Z, the ones that are just entering their adulthood, 18-21, lean Republican mostly. As for older Gen Z, men lean Republican by 3, and women, well, the ages 21 to 28, older Gen Z, they're a little bit more liberal. But the men lean Republican by 3 points, but the older Gen Z women, ages 21 to 28, are D plus 13. Which I think when you average it out, that's why it shows that they lean left. So it sounds like the women. So when you add 22 to 29 ages, just 22 to 29, it averages the total vote between men and women D plus 6 when you average out the older Gen Z. So yeah, which is kind of weird. Why is that? I do think why is this the case? Well, I think there's a lot more. You have a lot of grassroots conservatives doing a lot of outreach to these college campuses. You have Turning Point Action, the college Republicans that are grassroots, really going out. And I think it's also just better resources. Young people are less likely to watch cable news. A lot of their news comes from X. So a lot of stuff on X. I know X might be too much for a lot of people, but if you want to know things you may not always see, I recommend making an X account. X account has lots of news stuff you won't see. A lot of independent news on there that you're not going to see that on the legacy media or your cable news. So I maybe consider making one of those if you have the time to and can keep up. But a lot of them, and there's, I hate to say, but even I take TikTok to some way. I know TikTok's kind of cringe, I find, but young people are not watching cable news anymore. They're watching, getting their source from podcasts, X, TikTok. They're having a lot of sources coming from outside of cable news, and I think that's red pilling them too. And I think why are young people, and I also read here too, according to RCP, that every age demographic, according to RCP, every age demographic from young to age 60 to 69 approve of Donald Trump, and except voters that are considered 70 ages 70 or older, lean Democrat, or they have the least approval rating among Trump. That means Trump right now has a plus approval rating by every age group that goes from 18 to 69, except people that are 70 or older, which is minus 14 when it's just the 70. That's approval ratings change all the time, and I do think the polls are the corrupt polls, as I call them, the election mafia. They're going to, and the polling mafia, they're trying to skew the polls to make it look like Trump's more unpopular than he actually is. Some people don't want to believe that the older boomer generation is moving left. But after studying this for so long and looking at, there is definitely a realignment happening with age demographics. The older voters were always considered the more Republican demographic at one time, but that's changing, I think, largely because older voters, for the most part, are not very pro-MAGA. I'm sorry, but they're not. A lot of them are really, a lot of them watch cable news. A lot of them watch, a lot of them don't. They're not as access to these more, more independent news where they get more real news sources. They get them from legacy media, and they tend to believe whatever their TV tells them. Now, again, I don't want to generalize all boomers. There's some based ones, but the boomer generation, there's definitely a big problem right now with the senior demographic. So when you average out with Gen Z and Gen X right now, they lean the most conservative when you combine them together. But seniors 65 and older, it's a different story. And I don't know why that's the case. I generally think it has to do with propaganda. But I think a lot of boomers, they're hooked to globalism a lot of times, more hooked to they're kind of addicted to it because I think it's what they are used to doing. The whole America first aspect is kind of just foreign to them. Then they see it as un-American because since the 60s, we've been fighting everybody's problems. Well, actually, probably the 40s, actually, in some ways, or even before that, we were fighting people's problems. And yeah, so, I want to believe a lot of it's propaganda. That's why I generally think that we need a local news. I don't know if it's a good investment to buy out one of these corrupt news cables and reform them into a more newsworthy station, but we need a local news media that could capture the people who don't have them, because older voters generally don't have cable, especially retirees, and This is all they have. So we need to invest. How can we deprogram them? And it's hard because they're used to this. They've been programmed, I think, since the '60s to believe a lot of this propaganda. I think boomers are probably the most propagandized generation, in my opinion. I think, they were the civil rights generation. They were the hippie generation. They were they started the sexual revolution. So, it's, there's, they were the liberals. They were the liberal generation, and kind of went pretty wild. So yeah, there are a lot of problems that we're dealing with today, and I think a lot of people, a lot of young people are moving right because they realize that they're being screwed over by this system. You know, they're the poorest generation right now. Gen Z and millennials aren't too far behind that, and they're not able to own a home. They may not be able to own a home, and I think they're rejecting the lie that you'll own nothing and be happy. They're rejecting that. So, and I think um a lot of it's because of the tariffs. I think young people are the only ones that see the tariffs as an America first, because they see it as, because they have a long way to live from now. They can't get jobs, and they see Trump's tariffs as bringing jobs back to America so they can get actual jobs. So young people are actually seeing it, and they realize it as an America first policy, and that's what a lot of young voters tend to reject the globalistic propaganda they've gotten over the years and realize, no, we need to put America first. So Democrats should be panicked because we were told that just last year. I was like, no, we're gonna do terrible enough in a few generations because young people are gonna keep voting left. Well, a trend showing that they're becoming more conservative, not just politically, but I think culturally and a little bit religiously too. I think there is a trend right now, that young voters are, there's a huge Catholic, I'm trying to find it here. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, what I show you, it shows you that Gen Z shows a record number um converting to Catholicism. Now, say what you will about Catholics, for Protestants out there. I know there's a lot of divide among the church, among Catholics and Protestants. It has been for centuries, and a lot of hate, and sometimes a lot of hate from both sides. Both sides kind of calling each other heretics. Um, it's kind of a sad thing, the divide in the church as well, but it's part of a sinful nature that we're dealing with. So it's, the church Satan loves to divide the church. So here's an example. AF Gen Z leads wave of conversion to Catholicism, rejecting the modern chaos for tradition, discipline, and moral order. Yeah, there's no order right now. The church right now, the mainstream church is just on both sides. The mainstream, the more modern Catholic churches, and even the evangelical churches too, there, and the progressive Protestants. It's just young people want to go back to tradition, the Bible. They realize they want a purpose, and they're looking for something different than what the modern this culture has, that they've been sucked in with, and they're rejecting it. So I'm happy to see that, and you're actually seeing that in not just the United States, but you're seeing that also in, I think, UK and France are reverting, or have experienced a number of young Gen Z, or French Gen Z voter, people converting to Catholicism in England, which is interesting because England's Protestant, but again, they're progressive up there. The Protestants are progressive in England, so this is quite interesting. So, I don't know. I hope it's by faith. I hope that what you're seeing is, if for religiously, it's done by faith and not just you know, an experience, but it's actually done by faith. And it's good. It's better than zero. We need some Christian church to lead. I don't really care the denomination on that, but we need moral order. I believe that I do respect the Catholic Church in regards to the moral doctrine, because I do believe that they kind of have, historically, the ones who actually believe it have some of the best moral God in regards to biblical morals. You know, they don't believe in divorce. Even, you know, you can argue your opinions on how strict they go, but they really respect the value of marriage, the value of life, and traditional families. So yeah, I happy to see that. Um, but in regards to the politics too, I mean, the Democrats have better wake up, because you know, here in Wisconsin, they actually lost. The Democrats lost the Gen Z vote. In fact, it was the Gen Z 18 to 24 of why Trump won. Michigan too. So if this keeps being a trend, they're in big trouble in across the country. What the electorate will look like in a few cycles from now. So, and let's face it, if boomers are the only ones moving left, it's not so sustainable long term, because they don't have much life years left. Not no offense, but for real, it's not a sustainable demographic for long term. So what are Dems going to do? Because 2032 is going to be really interesting, because the electorate will be really different, because states like Florida and Texas are going to get more electoral votes. You're going to and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how the parties will change to accommodate what the electorate change, and how it'll change. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's interesting. So what do you guys think about this? And why do you think this, if this is true, why is there this generational divide suddenly, and why does it seem so different than what we're used to, or what has come to be? So, and anyway, let me know what you all think. Subscribe to this channel if you like it, and hit the bell for notifications. Anyway, I'm out. Have a good day.